One of the big things that I don't think that they talk a lot about whenever you talk about history in JFK is, somebody like you that studies it, but his chronic illnesses, with Addison's disease, scarlet fever, his back issues. Some people may know about that. And I had read that, he was often hospitalized, missing school for long periods of time.
Yeah, the more I researched, the more I found about his illnesses and some sort of secret things he did just to keep him well. I mean, when he was at Choate, he broke the record for most days in the infirmary. So he had this autoimmune disease that sort of affected every part of his life. He had something called celiac disease. Now it's sort of affiliated with irritable bowel syndrome. So his stomach was always destroying him, and he'd go through these periods where he'd lose a lot of weight. He'd get hives, and it would happen again and again. So I really admire his persistence for overcoming that. At one point maybe he went a little too far. It's hard to say. During he went to the Mayo Clinic, and he was getting ready to travel to Europe to be the eyes and ears of his father, as well as do the research for his own book. Steroids had just come into being, and so he made a decision to take steroids. They made a cut in his leg, and they put a implant of a steroid in there, and so that carried him through his trip. And he used that also during the war. But it may have had some debilitating effects on his back. That maybe it destroyed his cartilage, they believe. So and it had some serious effects too. But he was certainly always, I think that made him live life one day at a time and want to make the most of life. Because I think he had a feeling that maybe he wouldn't live that long. And I was thinking, would he have made it through a second term? I don't know. He was taking so many drugs at some point, very healthy, but at some point, I think something might have happened. But we'll never know.
Yeah, drugs are tough. I I know that a lot they have quite. The family had assumed Joe Jr. was kind of like the chosen one. Kind of leaving him behind, and your research kind of showed he used humor and wit to kind of deflect people. I don't know if he was embarrassed or like what things like really got at him that he used that to kind of deflect it.
Yeah, that is sort of a myth, I think, that, I think up till age, whatever, 20, certainly the ambassador, the patriarch, had Tab, the older brother, Joe Jr., grooming him to be president. After 20, all the evidence points to, and at the very end, by the end, Jack had passed his brother in almost every way imaginable. I mean, I can count the ways. He had written a book, Why England Slept. Joe had tried to write a book about the troubled Civil War in Spain. He was a war hero. His father had come to him for advice on what he should do to rehabilitate his reputation. The ambassador was an appeaser. He comes to his 22-year-old son and asked for some memos to write some stories about rehabilitating his position. Um, Symbolically, at the very end, he had passed his brother in rank. He was a lieutenant, and his brother, Joe Jr., was lieutenant junior grade. He had passed him in all respects. And I think by the time Joe died, I think his father had decided to let them both, determine their own future and not put all his resources behind Joe. So I think that's a big myth that until Joe died in the plane crash World War II, he was the one tapped to be, groomed to be president.